The rain had been falling for hours, drumming against the windows of his small, cluttered apartment, leaving the world outside hazy and gray. Mark Bennett stared at the steam rising from his cold cup of coffee, the bitter aroma doing nothing to stir the warmth he desperately longed for. Since his wife had passed, life had become a series of routines he barely managed to keep up with. A delicate juggling act of work, late-night feeds for his 5-year-old son, Ethan, and the crushing loneliness that never seemed to leave. The weight of single parenthood pressed down on him like the storm outside, relentless and suffocating. Tonight, for the first time in years, Mark felt a pang of longing for something more than survival. He felt the ache of wanting companionship, connection, a hand to hold through the storm. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the quiet miracles life sometimes hands us when we least expect them, pause for a moment to like this video, share it, comment, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Because this story isn't just about love, it's about hope, humanity, and the courage to start again. Mark had never been good at asking for help. He had always believed that strength meant doing it all alone, even when every bone in his body screamed otherwise. But tonight, he found himself hesitating at the doorway of his neighbor, a woman he had known for years but barely spoken to beyond polite greetings. Claire Hartman, with her gentle smile and sharp wit, lived just across the hall, a single woman who, like him, seemed to carry a quiet sadness behind her eyes. He had watched her tend to her garden, her laughter floating down the corridor like sunlight, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he felt he could trust her. And so, with trembling hands, he knocked. Claire answered, her hair damp from the rain, a towel draped over her shoulder. Her smile faltered slightly when she saw the exhaustion in Mark's eyes, the subtle tremor in his voice when he asked if she could give him some advice, dating advice, of all things. The question hung in the air, ridiculous and vulnerable, like stepping into a spotlight wearing nothing but honesty. Claire's eyes softened. She stepped aside wordlessly, gesturing him in. The apartment was warm, the scent of herbs and baked bread wrapping around him, a stark contrast to the chill of his own life. Mark spilled his heart in a torrent of confessions. He told her how lonely he had been, how years of grief had convinced him he was incapable of love, how Ethan deserved a father who was whole, not fractured. He spoke of the fear of rejection, of the awkwardness of putting himself out there after so long. Claire listened quietly, her hands clasped, her gaze never leaving his. And then she said something that changed everything. She told him that vulnerability was not weakness, that opening his heart was the bravest thing he could do. Not just for himself, but for his son. She said he deserved happiness, not someday, but now, and that sometimes, the first step toward healing began with asking for guidance from someone who saw him clearly. Her words were simple, but they struck Mark like a lightning bolt. They lifted the fog of his doubt just enough to allow a tiny spark of courage to flicker. That night, he didn't just leave with a plan. He left with the realization that human connection, even the kind born from trust in a neighbor, could light the darkest corners of his soul. The days that followed were not easy. Mark stumbled, embarrassed in awkward coffee shop conversations, fumbling over texts he agonized over before sending. But Claire had given him something more than advice, she had given him belief, and it became the invisible scaffold holding him upright. He began to embrace the small joys. The way Ethan laughed when a kite soared higher than they expected, the way the sun glinted on puddles after rain, the nervous excitement of a first date that felt terrifying yet exhilarating. And through it all, Claire was there, not as a push, not as a critic, but as a quiet anchor, reminding him that courage often blooms in small, almost invisible acts. If you want, I can continue the next sections, diving into how Mark's dating journey unfolds, how unexpected challenges appear, and ultimately lead to a powerful emotional climax with Claire and Ethan, all while building suspense and cinematic emotion, eventually reaching a full 6,000-word story suitable for a long YouTube video. I'll also include the second call to action near the end, as you requested, with a heartfelt comment request.